Welcome back, Lincoln Currency. What if I told you that a single penny could change your life? That's something you've probably passed over hundreds of times in your change jar or wallet could hold a secret, one forged in the heart of a U.S. mint in 1982, a year that would unknowingly become one of the most complex, mysterious, and lucrative moments in the entire history of the Lincoln cent. It may sound unbelievable, but for numismatists, coin collectors and experts, the 1982 1-cent coin is more than just copper and zinc. It's a treasure map, a symbol of transition, and for the incredibly lucky, a potential payday worth tens of thousands, or even, in rare stories and legends, millions of dollars. This is not fiction. This is the real story of the 1982 penny. To understand the strange world of the 1982 cent, we have to take a step back in time and understand why this particular year matters so much. It's not the first year of the Lincoln cent, and it's not the last. It didn't bring a brand new design. But what it did bring was a fundamental shift, an invisible one at first, that forever changed how pennies were made in the United States. It all started with the price of copper. In the early 1980s, inflation and market volatility sent the price of copper soaring. Pennies, at that time, were still being made mostly of copper, 95% copper to be exact, and just 5% zinc. That composition, in place since 1962, had worked fine when copper was cheap. But by 1981, the metal in a single penny was worth almost as much as, or even more than, the coin's face value. The U.S. Mint found itself in a bizarre predicament. It was literally losing money to make money, and so, in 1982, the U.S. Mint made a monumental decision. Quietly, with no change in design, it altered the very core of the cent's construction. The copper alloy was abandoned, replaced with a cheaper solution, a core of 97.5% zinc coated in a thin layer of pure copper to give it the same reddish hue. From the outside, most people couldn't tell the difference. But on a scale, the difference was undeniable. The old copper cents weighed about 3.11 grams. The new zinc ones weighed only about 2.5 grams. It may seem like a small shift, but to collectors, weight is everything. And that was just the beginning. What makes 1982 such a numismatic minefield is that the transition didn't happen overnight. In fact, for several months, both copper and zinc versions of the coin were being minted simultaneously. Different mints, using different dyes, produced coins with subtle but significant differences in their appearance. And here's where things get really complicated, and really valuable. Because of the way the dies were engraved, two distinct date styles emerged, the large date and the small date. The small date has more compact, rounded numerals, especially noticeable in the 2 and the 8. The large date appears bolder and more spread out. Now combine those two styles with the two different metal compositions, copper and zinc, and suddenly you have a matrix of possibilities. And in fact, in 1982, 7 distinct varieties of the Lincoln cent were produced. That's right, 7. That's more than almost any other year in the coin's long and storied history. There were large date copper cents, small date copper cents, large date zinc cents, small date zinc cents, and these came from both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. That's 6 varieties already. The 7th, and most legendary of them all, wasn't even known to exist until more than 3 decades later. That's the 1982 small date copper cent. A coin so rare, so mysterious, and so coveted that it has driven collectors into frenzies, inspired years of research, and sold for prices that seem absurd to anyone outside the hobby. But this is real. Verified. Certified. Graded. Valued in the tens of thousands of dollars. And we'll get to that coin soon. But first, let's take a closer look at what makes the 1982 cent so different, so divisive, and so difficult to understand, even for experienced collectors. On the front of the coin, the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln remains. Sculpted by Victor David Brenner in 1909, it had already become one of the most iconic and enduring designs in American coinage. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial still stands, designed by Frank Gasparo and first introduced in 1959 to replace the wheat ears. From a visual standpoint, the 1982 cent looks no different than any other Lincoln Memorial cent minted between 1959 and 2008. But beneath that coppery surface lies the truth, a truth only revealed through careful analysis, weighing, and a deep understanding of the year's minting anomalies. The shift from bronze to copper-plated zinc wasn't just a matter of cost, it also affected the way the coin struck. Zinc is harder than the old bronze alloy, and as a result, many zinc cents from 1982 show weaker details, especially around Lincoln's face, beard, and the lettering. This difference in strike quality can help experts distinguish between compositions even without a scale. But to be sure, a sensitive digital scale is essential. Thousands of coin collectors today own pocket scales for this very reason. If a 1982 cent weighs close to 3.1 grams, it's copper. If it's around 2.5 grams, it's zinc. And the real money lies in finding the rarest combinations, a small date design on a coin that weighs 3.1 grams and has a Denver Mint mark, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Among the standard varieties, most 1982 cents are still common, very common. Billions were minted. The Philadelphia Mint alone produced over 10 billion 1-cent coins that year. The Denver Mint added another 6 billion. Most of these were the large date varieties, and most were made of zinc. These coins, even in uncirculated condition, are worth just a few cents above face value. But when you dig into the rare small date variations, especially in the highest grades of mint condition, MS66, MS67, or higher, the value jumps significantly. Even a Philadelphia small date zinc cent in pristine red condition can be worth $20 to $100 or more. The copper version of that same coin, in MS67 red, has been known to sell for over $1,000. And that's just the common rare ones. What turns a coin from interesting to extraordinary is what comes next. The discovery of the impossible, a coin that was never supposed to exist. The 1982 D small date copper cent. According to official mint records, all Denver minted small date cents in 1982 were made of zinc. No copper planchets should have been used. But somehow, at least two did. One was found in 2016 by a collector named Paul Malone, who weighed his 1982 D small date penny and was shocked to find that it came in at 3.07 grams. He sent it off to a major grading company, which confirmed it, the first known example of a Denver small date copper cent. It graded $58, almost uncirculated, and sold for an astounding $18,800 at auction. The second example was discovered shortly after, and speculation has swirled ever since. How many more are out there? Are there 3? 10? 100? No one knows for sure. But it has created an entire subculture of treasure hunters, combing through penny jars, rolls from the bank, and estate coin collections, hoping to strike gold, or rather, copper. There's something irresistible about it. Unlike rare sports memorabilia or million-dollar artworks, this treasure might actually be hiding in plain sight, in a pocket or a drawer. It's the thrill of the hunt, mixed with real financial potential. And it all revolves around one of the smallest, simplest denominations in U.S. currency, the humble 1-cent coin. The deeper you go, the more the layers unfold. Even among 1982 copper cents, subtle differences in the strike, luster, and color affect value. Red coins, those that retain their original reddish copper hue, are worth more than brown or red-brown pieces. Coins with full steps on the Lincoln Memorial, perfect strike, and no nicks or scratches are the holy grail for graders. But what really drives up the price is rarity, especially when paired with excellent condition. That's why the 1982 D small date copper cent is so special. It combines a freak occurrence, an off-metal strike, with a rare date design and a mint mark combination that shouldn't exist. This is only the beginning of the story. As we continue, we'll dig into grading, auctions, values, myths, and even hoaxes. You'll see how this one year, one coin, one decision to change the metal of a coin altered everything. For now, keep watching, because in the next part, we'll dive into values, grades, collecting strategies, and explore what's real, what's rumor, and what might still be out there waiting to be discovered. Every serious collector knows that not all coins are created equal. 2 pennies minted in the same year, from the same mint, and even using the same metal can differ in value by hundreds or even thousands of dollars based on one crucial factor: condition. In the coin world, condition is everything. It's not just whether a coin is old or rare, it's about whether it still looks the way it did the moment it left the mint. That's where grading comes in. Professional grading agencies like PCGS and NGC use a 70-point scale to evaluate coins, with MS or mint state designations reserved for uncirculated coins. An MS60 is the lowest mint state grade, often with dull luster or small marks. An MS70 is perfect, flawless, with absolutely no blemishes visible under magnification. And for coins like the 1982 1-cent piece, especially the small date copper and the ultra-rare 1982D small date copper, the difference between MS64 and MS67 can mean the difference between a $100 coin and a $10,000 one. Even more fascinating is how luster, color, and strike sharpness influence value. Copper coins, unlike silver or gold, develop patinas and tone with age. Collectors grade them not just by detail, but by their color: red, red-brown, or brown. Red coins, those that retain 95% or more of their original copper brilliance, are always the most desirable. A 1982 small date bronze cent in MS67 red is vastly more valuable than the same coin in brown. Strike quality also matters. Sharper details in Lincoln's hair, beard, cheekbones, and the fine lines of the memorial columns on the reverse can push a coin up by thousands in value. The grading services note these details meticulously, and in the case of 1982 cents, they are especially critical. That's because millions of 1982 coins, especially the zinc ones, show softness in the strike. Finding a sharply struck 1982 small date, with clean surfaces, brilliant luster, and full color, is a prize few collectors can resist. Auction records tell the story best. Over the past decade, dozens of 1982 1-cent coins have crossed the auction block, but only a handful have made headlines. In 2014, a 1982 small date copper cent in MS67 red, certified by PCGS, fetched nearly $10,000 at auction. A 1982D large date zinc cent in MS69, nearly perfect, sold for over $15,000. And of course, the legendary 1982D small date copper cents have both sold for prices around $18,800, despite not even being uncirculated. Imagine what one of these coins would bring if it turned up in MS65, MS66, or higher. That's the dream. That's why collectors keep looking. Because the next great discovery may still be out there, in a bank roll, in a dusty jar, or hiding in the change from a vending machine. For most people, a penny is an afterthought. It's barely worth bending down to pick up. But for those who understand the secrets of the 1982 cent, every penny is a potential lottery ticket. Coin roll hunters, the modern-day prospectors of numismatics, know this well. They'll order boxes of pennies from banks, sometimes thousands at a time, and sit for hours with scales, loupes, and magnifiers, inspecting every single coin. They're not just looking for wheat cents or Indian heads. They're looking for that elusive weight, 3.1 grams. They're looking for the curve in the 2 that signifies a small date. They're looking for a D mint mark. And most importantly, they're looking for that magical combination of all three. Because if they find it, they could be holding the third known example of a 1982D small date copper cent, and that coin, quite literally, could change their lives. There's a deep thrill in this kind of collecting. It's part science, part luck, part obsession. You learn to spot date styles from across the room. You dream in copper and zinc. You weigh coins in your sleep. And in doing so, you begin to appreciate the subtle artistry and accidental magic of the minting process. These aren't just stamped discs of metal, they are tiny historical artifacts. They tell stories not just about Abraham Lincoln, or the U.S. Mint, but about the economy, the technology, and the culture of the time. In 1982, the Mint was under pressure. The cost of production was too high. Public demand for cents was relentless. Machines were being upgraded. Staff was stretched thin. And somewhere in that chaos, a few bronze planchets slipped through in Denver and were struck with small date dies. It was an accident. A mistake. A glitch in the system. But today, it's the most valuable error of the entire Lincoln Memorial series. There are always rumors. Whispers on forums. TikTok videos claiming someone found a 1982 penny worth $76 million. To be clear, number 1982 1-cent coin has ever sold for anywhere near that amount. The $76 million number is internet hype, exaggeration taken to absurd extremes. The real numbers, while smaller, are still shocking. $10,000. $18,800. $15,600. All real auction prices. All for coins that were once considered everyday currency. And those prices continue to rise, slowly but surely, as more collectors enter the market and the number of high-grade examples stays low. The legend of the 1982 penny grows not because it's flashy, but because it hides its value so well. You won't find gold or silver here. Just copper, and zinc, and a lot of mystery. No one knows exactly how many small-date coppers were struck in Philadelphia. No one knows how many bronze planchets remained in Denver when the transition to zinc occurred. The Mint itself can't say for sure. Records from that time were incomplete or never kept. And that mystery adds fuel to the fire. What else is out there? Could there be a 1982 small-date copper cent in Mint State 66 hiding in a collector's desk drawer? Could it appear tomorrow? Could it appear in your change? Many believe that coins are too complicated to collect. But in truth, all you need is a good scale, a magnifying glass, and patience. A few tools, and an eye for detail. And with that, you too could become part of this strange, exciting world, where a 1-cent piece can become a $10,000 artifact, and a moment of awareness can turn spare change into historic discovery. There's a reason the 1982 cent inspires so much obsession. Because it blurs the line between ordinary and extraordinary. Between common and priceless. And for a coin that costs just 1 cent, that's a pretty powerful legacy. The more you study this coin, the more you realize how interconnected it is with American history. In 1982, the U.S. was in the midst of a recession. The economy was volatile. Inflation was high. Unemployment was rising. And yet, the nation kept minting coins. It needed them. It relied on them. And in that moment, a simple change, shifting from copper to zinc, reflected much more than a cost-saving measure. It symbolized a turning point. And just like that, the copper era of the penny quietly came to a close. But the echoes of that decision still ring out today, in auctions, in collector communities, in the small handful of coins that defied the rules and survived as copper when they should have been zinc. If you're lucky enough to find one, you hold not just a valuable object, but a piece of living history. A coin that wasn't meant to exist. A ghost of a different time. And the market will reward you handsomely for it. Because while millions of 1982 cents circulate every day, only a few are destined to become legends. And if you're watching this, maybe one of them is already in your pocket. Every so often in the world of numismatics, a single year in a coin's life can become the focus of intense fascination, scrutiny, and endless analysis. The year 1982 is one of those years, a perfect storm of economic necessity, mechanical transition, minting anomalies, and sheer unpredictability. It's become a case study not just in coin production but in the very psychology of collecting itself. And the closer you look, the more apparent it becomes that the 1982 Lincoln cent is far more than just copper and zinc. It's a mirror into a moment in American history, a representation of shifting industrial priorities, and a magnet for both truth and myth. What drives someone to search through tens of thousands of pennies, one by one, eyes squinting under a magnifying lamp, scale at the ready, fingers blackened by old metal? It isn't just money. It's the possibility, the what if. It's the same reason people pan for gold or hunt meteorites. And the 1982 cent feeds that instinct perfectly. Because unlike many rare coins that require travel, expensive purchases, or insider access, the 1982 penny can be found anywhere. It's in your wallet. In that glass jar you never empty. In old coin rolls forgotten in dresser drawers. It's accessible. And because of that, it creates an obsession. This obsession leads collectors to develop meticulous methods. Some sort by mint mark first, separating D coins from those with no mint mark. Others begin with weight, checking every coin on a digital scale to see whether it reads closer to 3.1 grams or 2.5. If it weighs 3.1 grams, it's likely a copper cent. If it weighs 2.5, it's zinc. But weight isn't enough. You need to identify the date style, large or small. On the small date, the number 2 has a distinct curve and the 8 is more symmetrical. On the large date, the 2 has a flat base and the 8 looks more bloated. Mastering this distinction takes practice, and many beginners struggle with it at first. But with time, even the tiniest serif or numeral curve becomes second nature. There's an art to it. The search becomes a ritual. The pop of the coin roll. The ring of metal on glass. The pause when the scale hits 3.11. The heartbeat spike when you see a D under the date. And then, always, that careful, exacting comparison to a known small date image, just to be sure. Sometimes you get fooled. Sometimes it's just damage or weak strike. But that moment of possibility is what keeps people coming back, and yet, where there's obsession, there are always scams. The rise in value of the 1982 D small date copper cent has led to a surge in fakes and altered coins. Some scammers attempt to plate zinc cents with a thin copper layer to fool scales. Others shave the edges to manipulate the weight. Some even take large date coins and alter the numerals to look like small dates, using microtools or corrosive chemicals. But these fakes rarely hold up under scrutiny. Grading companies have become expert at identifying them. PCGS and NGC use high-powered imaging, metallurgy tests, and decades of expertise to catch even the most subtle forgeries. Still, the risk remains, especially on online marketplaces or private sales where coins are not authenticated. So how can a casual collector protect themselves? First, never rely on photos alone. Lighting can distort color and exaggerate details. Always ask for high-resolution scans, weight confirmation, and preferably certification. Second, learn the visual differences yourself. Nothing beats first-hand experience. Practice comparing known large and small dates side by side. Train your eye. Third, if you truly believe you have a rare coin, especially one that weighs correctly and shows the small date design, send it to a grading company. It's worth the investment. A $60 grading fee could turn into a $6,000 payday. The beauty of the 1982 cent is that it democratizes the hobby. You don't need to be rich. You don't need to travel to a national coin show. You don't need a network of dealers or a vault. You just need time, focus, and patience. And with that, even someone starting with a single roll of pennies has a real chance of discovering something extraordinary. But let's not forget, most 1982 pennies are not rare. The vast majority are common, well circulated, and worth only face value. Even the copper versions, unless in high mint state, won't fetch much. So why keep looking? Why does this coin inspire such devotion? Because rarity alone doesn't drive obsession. Mystery does. The 1982 D small date copper cent should not exist. It violates official mint records. It evades easy explanation. Its very existence challenges what collectors thought they knew. And as long as that mystery remains, people will keep searching. There's also something poetic about it. The idea that a coin, a tiny disc of metal, mass-produced in the billions, could escape the predictable fate of currency and become a historical artifact. A fluke. A survivor. And it's that romance, as much as the monetary value, that keeps the legend of the 1982 cent alive. Because every time someone finds a new one, the story grows. Every new discovery becomes another thread in a tapestry that stretches back over 40 years, and while $76 million may be an internet exaggeration, there's truth buried beneath the hype. The value of any object is determined not just by rarity or material, but by belief. The belief that something matters. That it's worth having. Worth studying. Worth preserving. The 1982 cent has all of that. It has rarity. It has beauty. It has drama. And perhaps more than any other modern coin, it has myth. Coin values rise and fall with markets, with trends, with generations. But stories last. And the story of the 1982 cent, with its copper ghosts and zinc stand-ins, its mint mark mysteries and weighty secrets, its sudden auctions and whispered rumors, that story is still being written. Collectors don't just want coins. They want meaning. And the 1982 cent offers that in abundance. It offers the thrill of the hunt. The reward of patience. The spark of possibility. And it invites everyone, young or old, rich or broke, to play a part. Because this isn't just about pennies. It's about the joy of discovery. The pride of knowledge. The quiet satisfaction of finding something others missed. So the next time you pick up a penny from the sidewalk, or crack open a roll from the bank, or clean out your grandmother's coin jar, stop for a moment. Take a closer look. Feel the weight in your hand. Listen for the ring. Examine the date. Check for that tiny D. Because you might just be holding a piece of one of the most compelling stories in American coinage, and that story isn't over yet. Long before the 1982 cent captured the imagination of collectors and treasure hunters alike, there were other coins that walked the line between myth and metal. Perhaps the most iconic of them all is the 1943 copper cent. A coin that, like the 1982 D small date copper, wasn't supposed to exist. During World War II, the U.S. Mint shifted penny production from bronze to zinc-coated steel to save copper for the war effort. But a few leftover copper planchets from 1942 accidentally made their way into the presses. Only a handful were ever struck. And those that survived have become the stuff of legend. One sold for over $1.7 million. Another was found in a high school cafeteria tray and later auctioned for nearly the same amount. That story taught the collecting world something vital: minting errors, genuine, accidental, unintentional, can become more valuable than any planned design. This is the shadow the 1982 D small date copper cent walks in. It is the spiritual successor to the 1943 copper. Both are the result of transition. Both occurred during a material change in coinage. Both were struck in defiance of minting policy, slipped through unnoticed, and lived for decades among pocket change and dusty drawers. And both have taught collectors and historians that even in the most mechanized, regulated institutions, mistakes still happen. But these aren't just mistakes. These are miracles, and the miracle of the 1982 penny continues to ripple through the collecting world. Why? Because unlike the 1943 copper, which has been hunted for generations and whose few surviving examples are mostly accounted for, the 1982 D small date copper cent is still a mystery. Only 2 confirmed specimens. 2. In a mintage of over 6 billion coins from the Denver Mint that year. That level of scarcity, combined with the fact that it took more than 30 years for anyone to even confirm one existed, makes it one of the most compelling and active hunts in modern numismatics. The possibility remains that a third coin is out there. That a fourth, or a fifth, sits forgotten in a bank vault or shoebox. That's why people are obsessed, but with obsession comes distortion. Social media, with its relentless pace and hunger for sensational content, has taken the story of the 1982 penny and turned it into clickbait, exaggeration, and urban legend. Headlines scream about a penny worth $76 million. TikTokers show blurry videos of 1982 cents, waving them at the camera and claiming they're retiring because of one lucky find. Some users glue zinc pennies to copper washers to fake the weight. Others copy real coin videos and re-upload them with fake prices and misleading music. And for those new to the hobby, it's confusing. It's overwhelming. It's deceptive, because the truth is, number 1982 cent has ever sold for $76 million. Not even $1 million. The highest confirmed price remains under $20,000. That's still incredible. That's still life-changing for a coin that most people would ignore. But the fantasy of a penny buying you a mansion is, at least for now, just that, a fantasy. What's real is even more interesting. Because real coin collecting, real numismatics, is about the thrill of discovery, the discipline of study, the satisfaction of understanding a system so deeply that you can see what others can't, and the tools for that understanding have never been more powerful. Today, collectors use high-resolution microscopes, digital calipers, precise electronic scales, and specialized apps that identify varieties, track auction prices, and verify minting characteristics. The community has moved online, too. Forums like CoinTalk and Reddit's r/coins are full of people posting photos of their finds, asking for help identifying die varieties, and celebrating the discovery of even a minor double die or RPM, repunched mint mark. It's a shared experience, driven not by greed but by fascination. Every small discovery adds to the collective knowledge. Every new confirmed error expands the catalog of known anomalies. Technology has made it possible to research a coin's potential value in seconds, compare images to official mint die diagnostics, and even contact experts across the world in real time. But it's also made it easier to spread misinformation. Fake coins, altered images, and staged viral videos spread faster than truth. Which is why patience, skepticism, and education are more important now than ever. Because the real treasures, the verified 1982 small date copper cents, are out there. And they don't need hype. They speak for themselves. Understanding how such a coin came to be requires more than just belief. It requires knowledge of the minting process. First, the US Mint does not manually feed planchets into striking machines. Planchets are automatically sorted, fed, and struck at incredible speeds, hundreds per minute. The chance of a single bronze planchet slipping into a press set up for zinc coins is small, but not zero. Especially in a year of transition, with overlapping production runs, unstandardized changeovers, and enormous production volume, mistakes can and did happen. But what makes the 1982 small date copper cent special is that it combines multiple levels of rarity. First, it was struck on the wrong planchet. That alone is rare. Second, it was struck with the small date die, a variant used less frequently at the Denver Mint. Third, it was preserved well enough to be identified, weighed, submitted, and confirmed by a top-tier grading service. That triple rarity is what gives it value. Not hype. Not fantasy. Just simple, cold, mechanical rarity, and as more people learn about that rarity, the legend grows. But legends have their pitfalls. Every few weeks, a photo will circulate online showing a 1982 penny with the wrong shape or color, or altered weight. Newcomers get excited. They message experts. They spend hours measuring, weighing, testing, only to be disappointed when the truth emerges. It's not real. It's a zinc coin with copper plating. It's a large date misidentified as a small one. It's post-mint damage, not an error. These moments sting. But they are also part of the journey. Because every collector, every serious one, has a drawer full of almosts. And that drawer is the foundation of true expertise. In time, a good collector learns not just what to look for, but what not to be fooled by. They learn to love the details. The slight upward hook of the 2. The ridge thickness of the rim. The minute differences in Lincoln's hair and jawline that signal a weak strike versus a die error. They learn the stories behind coins, not just the prices. And in doing so, they begin to build something more valuable than a rare cent. They build knowledge. And that knowledge becomes power. It becomes the ability to walk into an estate sale and spot a coin no one else recognizes. The ability to explain, with confidence, why a certain penny is worth $10 and another, seemingly identical, is worth $10,000. The ability to share, to teach, to pass on a passion that began with a single coin but grew into something far greater. The 1982 1-cent coin is just a penny. But it's also a puzzle. A relic. A mystery. It's a coin with layers, a surface that conceals composition, a date that hints at a design shift, a weight that tells the real story. It is proof that even in mass production, even in automation, even in systems designed for perfect repetition, there is always room for error. And where there is error, there is opportunity. So when the media sells you the myth of a $76 million penny, remember this: the truth is already incredible. A penny worth nearly $20,000 is real. A collector finding one in change is real. A 3.1-gram coin with a small date and a Denver mint mark is real. And in that reality lies more wonder, more excitement, and more potential than any fake story ever could, because the greatest treasures are not the ones that go viral. They're the ones that are found by quiet persistence, careful study, and an unshakable belief that even the most ordinary things can hide extraordinary secrets. Every story has a turning point, a moment when curiosity turns into commitment, when casual interest deepens into passion. For many collectors, that turning point is marked by a single coin. For some, it's a gleaming silver dollar. For others, a well-worn wheat cent passed down through generations. But for an increasing number of collectors in recent years, it's the 1982 penny that changes everything. What begins as a simple question, could my penny be rare? Opens a door into a world of history, chemistry, mint mechanics, design nuance, and a hunt that never truly ends. The first step for any new collector entering this world is simple: observation. Take a magnifying glass, better yet, a jeweler's loupe, and begin looking closely at your coins. Focus on the date. Focus on the mint mark. Focus on the tiny differences in font, spacing, and relief. For the 1982 penny, these details matter immensely. You'll want to understand the 7 officially recognized varieties. Not just what they are, but how to spot them, how they were made, and why each one exists. Let's go through them carefully, one by one, with no rush, because mastery lies in details. First, we have the 1982 large date copper cent from the Philadelphia Mint. This variety is among the most common of the year. The large date, when compared to the small date, shows numerals that are thicker, wider, and slightly bolder. On this coin, the 2 has a flat base and a more elongated curve. Its weight is approximately 3.11 grams. In circulated condition, it's worth face value. In high mint state, MS66 red or higher, it can command $10 to $50, depending on eye appeal and grading service. Next is the 1982 small date copper cent from Philadelphia. This is one of the most desirable non-error 1982 varieties. The small date version has more compact, refined numerals. The 2 curves upward sharply at the base, and the 8 is evenly rounded on both loops. The weight again is around 3.11 grams. What makes this coin special is its combination of limited small date production and traditional copper alloy. In MS67 red, this coin has sold for several $1,000s. That's a dramatic leap from common copper cents. This is a prime target for collectors. Then comes the 1982 large date zinc cent from Philadelphia. This version, also quite common, weighs around 2.5 grams. Being one of the first waves of copper-plated zinc pennies, this variety sometimes shows weak strikes and uneven surfaces due to the different physical properties of zinc. Still, uncirculated examples are plentiful. In grades of MS65 or higher, they might fetch $10 to $30 at auction. The fourth is the 1982 small date zinc cent from Philadelphia. This one draws more attention. Lighter in weight, again about 2.5 grams, but with the small date design, it is more challenging to find in high grades. And because it shares a similar appearance with the rare small date copper version, it's often misidentified by beginners. That mistake is common, but once you know how to weigh coins and distinguish die characteristics, it becomes second nature. High-grade examples have sold for up to $100 from the Denver Mint. We begin with the 1982 D large date copper cent. This coin also weighs 3.11 grams and is relatively common, though less so than its zinc counterparts. The Denver large date copper can still surprise collectors in MS66 red and above, with auction prices ranging from $40 to $150 depending on luster and preservation. Next is the 1982 D large date zinc cent. One of the most mass-produced varieties of the year, it's lightweight at 2.5 grams and not considered rare. But again, condition changes everything. Coins with flawless surfaces and brilliant red luster in MS68 or MS69 have sold for over $10,000 at major auctions. That's not due to rarity in type, but rarity in perfection. Finally, we arrive at the coin that defines the legend, the 1982 D small date copper cent. Officially, this coin should not exist. And yet, at least two have been authenticated. Weighing in at just over 3.1 grams, struck with the small date die, and bearing the D for Denver, it represents a stunning error in material allocation and minting protocol. The known examples have sold for nearly $19,000, and if another surfaces, especially in uncirculated condition, it could shatter records. Now that you know the varieties, the next step is action. For collectors, new or seasoned, roll hunting is the preferred method of discovery. It's not glamorous. It takes time, effort, and enormous patience. But it's one of the only avenues left where someone with little money and no connections can still find a coin worth thousands of dollars. Roll hunting starts by visiting local banks and purchasing rolls or boxes of pennies, often $25 or $50 at a time. You'll need a good scale, digital, accurate to 2 decimal places. A loupe with 10x magnification. Soft lighting. Clean surfaces. Gloves if you're serious. And most importantly, a system. Sort by mint mark. Weigh each coin. Separate all 1982s. Check for the small date design. Log everything. The best collectors aren't just lucky, they're organized, and as you gain experience, you begin to see patterns. You learn to spot damage versus true errors. You learn which rolls contain older coins, which years tend to be cleaner, and how to predict the quality of coins based on source. Some even build relationships with tellers or bank managers, requesting unsearched rolls when possible. Others purchase sealed boxes from the Federal Reserve Circuit, hoping to get untouched inventory. It's methodical. It's meticulous. And sometimes, it pays off. Of course, coin collecting is not without its risks. It's easy to chase every rumor, every viral video claiming that a minor scuff is a mint error. But real numismatics is built on knowledge. It requires discipline, cross-checking, and a constant willingness to learn. The most successful collectors don't assume, they confirm. They consult reference books like the Red Book, error coin catalogs, and digital photo guides. They send potential rarities to certified graders. And above all, they stay humble. Because in this world, even the experts are still learning. The 1982 cent, then, becomes more than just a coin, it becomes a classroom. It teaches metal composition, design history, error classification, auction economics, and minting logistics. It introduces concepts like die wear, strike pressure, planchet thickness, and plating issues. It challenges assumptions and demands attention to detail. And it offers a reward that is as intellectual as it is financial. To truly understand the 1982 penny is to understand the very nature of collecting. You're not just hoarding coins. You're deciphering history. You're witnessing industrial change. You're participating in a living tradition of curiosity, respect, and discovery. This is why the story endures. Because even as technology evolves, even as grading becomes more advanced, the simple act of holding a coin and wondering, what if, remains universal. That wonder, the spark of imagination and inquiry, is what keeps collectors searching, researching, weighing, and comparing. The 1982 cent isn't just a challenge. It's an invitation. An invitation to think deeper, to look closer, to care more about something small enough to fit in your palm but vast enough to fill libraries. So if you're just starting out, don't be overwhelmed. Don't worry if you can't tell a small date from a large one on day one. Don't stress if your scale is a little cheap or your eyes need practice. Every master collector started with confusion. Every expert had their first fake out. What matters is that you begin. That you keep asking questions. That you never stop looking, because in a world where everything feels digital, temporary, disposable, here is something tangible, enduring, and potentially priceless, something hiding in plain sight, and maybe, just maybe, the next 1982 small date copper cent isn't in a vault or a case. Maybe it's waiting in a jar, a roll, a drawer, a cup holder, or under the couch cushion, waiting for someone like you to find it, recognize it, and tell its story all over again. To understand the rarity of a coin like the 1982 small date copper cent, it isn't enough to know what it looks like. It's not even enough to know how much it weighs or where it was minted. To really understand why this coin matters, why it's so rare and so valuable, you have to go deeper. You have to step inside the mint itself. You have to see the process. You have to follow the raw materials as they become finished currency, and learn just how thin the line is between normal and extraordinary. It starts with planchets, the blank metal discs that will eventually be struck into coins. In 1982, these were arriving at the U.S. Mint facilities from outside suppliers. For decades, the copper planchets had been an industry standard, 95% copper, 5% zinc, roughly 3.11 grams in weight. But with the rising price of copper, that standard became economically unsustainable. The Mint made the decision to shift, quietly and systematically, to a copper-plated zinc composition, only 2.5 grams in weight, with a zinc core and a thin copper shell. On the surface, they looked nearly identical. But inside, everything had changed. This was not a flip of a switch. The transition did not happen on a single day. It was staggered across months, and different mints handled it differently. The Philadelphia Mint began striking zinc coins around the middle of the year, but Denver, always the workhorse of U.S. coin production, was still producing both kinds of coins deep into the second half of 1982. Shipments of bronze planchets were dwindling, replaced by zinc blanks. And somewhere in that transitional chaos, a few bronze planchets were misrouted. Maybe they were leftovers. Maybe they were mixed in a batch. Maybe someone loaded the wrong drum into the feeding mechanism. We may never know the precise moment of the mistake, but we know it happened, because today, we have proof, the 1982 small date copper cent, defied all assumptions. According to the Mint's own records, Denver never struck small date dies onto copper planchets. They weren't supposed to. But we now know they did. Which tells us something very important about how coinage really works. It's not infallible. It's not immune to human error. And even in a factory that produces billions of coins per year with robotic precision, anomalies slip through. Coin presses are calibrated for exact tolerances. They are programmed for specific planchet weights, thicknesses, and hardness levels. Switching from copper to zinc wasn't just a material change, it was a calibration change. Zinc is softer, more brittle. It doesn't strike as cleanly. This is why so many 1982 zinc cents have mushy details or lack full facial features on Lincoln's bust. The machinery had to adapt. And when you try to run copper planchets through machines calibrated for zinc, you can tell. You can feel it in the strike. That's one of the ways grading companies spot the genuine copper anomalies. Not just by weight, but by strike pressure, rim formation, and how the metal flowed under the dies. For experts, this becomes a language. The flow lines on a coin, the shape of the rim, the depth of the devices, these are all clues. They tell a story of how the coin was struck, what metal was used, how worn the dies were, and whether anything unusual occurred during production. And with 1982 cents, that story gets very, very complicated. Because not only do you have two compositions, you have two date styles, and multiple mints, all overlapping in one chaotic year, and so we speculate. How many 1982 small date copper cents are still out there? 2 have been confirmed and certified. Could there be 5? 10? 50? Possibly. Probably. But even if there are dozens, the odds of finding one are still astronomically low. Not just because of the numbers, but because of the habits of the public. People don't save pennies. They spend them. They toss them. They forget them. Most people couldn't tell you the last time they even looked at the date on a coin. Which means the rare ones may still be sitting in jars, or worse, in landfills. Lost forever. That's part of what makes this pursuit so addictive. Because it's not just a coin hunt, it's a rescue mission. A race against time. Every year that passes, more of these coins are lost. Circulated into oblivion. Destroyed in Coinstar machines. Damaged beyond recognition. But a few remain. They have to. Statistically, logically, undeniably, there must be more. And the next one to be found could come from anywhere. Some believe that more examples will eventually appear in high-grade mint rolls that have remained sealed since the early 1980s. It's possible. Coin dealers occasionally purchase old inventory, boxes of original bank-wrapped rolls from estates or retired banks. It's the closest thing to opening a time capsule. And in one of those boxes, one of those rolls, there may be a coin that changes everything again. That's the Holy Grail scenario. Not just finding one, but finding one uncirculated. Untouched. MS-65 or higher. Such a coin wouldn't sell for $18,000. It would sell for many times that, and still, the mystery deepens. What exactly happened in the Denver Mint in 1982? Did an employee notice and say nothing? Did a batch of leftover copper planchets get dumped into a hopper? Was there a last-minute production order that called for small date dies on older blanks? We may never know. The U.S. Mint does not maintain detailed day-by-day records of planchet usage. And the people who worked on those lines are now decades removed from the event. Even if one of them remembered, would they realize the significance? This is the paradox of modern minting. It is incredibly precise, and yet vulnerable to human imperfection. It produces billions of coins, and yet a single misplaced blank can create a coin that becomes a legend. And that's exactly what the 1982 small date copper cent has become. A modern legend. Not because it's flashy. Not because it's valuable. But because it slipped through. Because it shouldn't exist, and yet it does. Because even in an era of machines, something human still happened, and so the speculation continues. Some experts believe fewer than 10 exist. Others believe dozens remain hidden, unrecognized, or misidentified. What everyone agrees on is this: the story isn't over. Not even close. Every new generation of collectors begins with a question. Why does this coin matter? What makes this penny different? Why are people obsessed with it? And the answer is always the same. Because it's real. Because it's rare. Because it's a reminder that treasure isn't always buried, it's sometimes handed to you in change at the corner store. That's the power of the 1982 cent. It teaches you to pay attention. To question the ordinary. To weigh the things that seem weightless. And to believe, even just a little, in the idea that the universe might hide something remarkable in the most unlikely places. So weigh your coins. Study your rolls. Learn the language of dies and strikes and planchets. Understand what you're holding. Because you never know when a simple penny could reveal a secret 40 years in the making, and when that day comes, when someone finds the third known 1982 small date copper cent, and it's perfect, gleaming, untouched, there will be celebration. There will be disbelief. There will be headlines. And somewhere, quietly, a collector will smile and say, "I knew it was still out there." Some coins make history. Others are made by history. The 1982 1-cent coin is both. It was born during a moment of transition, a turning point in America's monetary policy, metallurgy, and industrial design. But over time, it became something more than just a product of its environment. It became a symbol. A quiet reminder that sometimes, the smallest things carry the heaviest weight. Today, the 1982 penny isn't just famous among American collectors. Its story has traveled across oceans. Numismatists in Europe, Asia, and South America now know about the copper and zinc transition. International collectors, used to their own complex coin histories, see in the 1982 cent something universally compelling, a perfect storm of error, mystery, and value. Foreign coin forums discuss it. Videos about it are subtitled in multiple languages. Dealers in countries where the US cent doesn't even circulate still seek them out at coin shows, hoping to spot that elusive weight difference on a stray American coin. It's unusual for a modern coin, especially a 1-cent piece, to gain such worldwide recognition. But this isn't just about rarity. It's about resonance. The 1982 penny story echoes something fundamental. In a world of industrial uniformity and mass production, we're drawn to the accidental. To the imperfection that slipped through. To the moment when a machine failed, and a story began. That resonance is global, but the 1982 cent didn't appear in a vacuum. It's part of a much larger narrative in minting history, one filled with its own cast of outliers. Consider the 1955 double die cent struck with misaligned dies, its dramatic doubling on the date and motto stunned collectors. Then there's the 1969 double die, the 1972 Type 1 double die, the 1992 close AM cent, and the famed 1999 wide AM. All small details. All massive discoveries. Each time, it was a subtle deviation, a gap between letters, a tilt in a numeral, an off-center clash, that turned a coin from ordinary to legendary. What sets the 1982 small date copper cent apart is how it combines multiple forms of rarity, wrong planchet, unexpected date style, and mint location. It's like lightning striking 3 times in the same place. It's not just an error. It's a contradiction. A challenge to mint records. A coin that shouldn't exist, but somehow does. And in that contradiction, it invites scrutiny, fascination, and ultimately, belief. And yet, even now, decades after the year it was struck, the full story of the 1982 cent remains incomplete. We don't know how many were made. We don't know how many survive. We don't know if another is waiting to be discovered, or if it's already been lost. All we have are questions. And it's those questions that keep collectors searching. Because the unknown is more powerful than the known. It keeps hope alive. Meanwhile, the US Mint has changed. Today's coin production involves lasers, digital scanning, and robotic automation far more advanced than anything in 1982. Quality control has improved. Error rates have dropped. But errors still happen. Modern collectors chase 2004 Wisconsin quarters with extra leaves, 2021 quarters with die chips and drooling Washingtons, and the ever-elusive mule coins struck with mismatched dies, like a cent on one side and a dime on the other. But these modern errors often feel manufactured, almost too convenient. The 1982 penny feels different. It feels authentic. It feels like a genuine relic from a chaotic industrial moment. And that authenticity gives it a weight no machine-made modern novelty can replicate. There's also something deeper, something more human. In a time when cash is vanishing and coins are increasingly seen as obsolete, the 1982 cent forces us to reconsider. It reminds us that currency is more than just a transaction medium. It's history you can hold, design you can feel, mistakes you can learn from. It's a record of who we were, what we valued, how we worked, what we overlooked, and what we protected. The 1982 cent protects a moment. A moment when the cost of production threatened the future of the coin. When inflation collided with tradition. When speed created mistakes. And those mistakes, those rare, precious, almost impossible mistakes, became the prize. What's most powerful about this story is that it's still unfolding. Somewhere out there, in a coin jar or a sock drawer, a third example may be waiting. Or a fourth. Or a fifth. We don't know. But we do know this: every collector who searches, every person who stops to weigh a penny, becomes part of that unfolding. They continue the story. They keep the history alive, because the 1982 small date copper cent is not just a coin. It's a whisper. A question. A challenge from the past to the present. Can you find me? And for that reason, the search will never end. There's a quiet kind of poetry in holding a penny between your fingers. It doesn't feel like much, light, common, forgettable. Most people walk past them, discard them, let them pile up in jars or vanish under car seats. But every now and then, one penny isn't like the rest. Every now and then, one carries the weight of a story, and in that story is the reason collectors do what they do, not for money, not for fame, but for the silent thrill of discovery. The 1982 penny is the perfect teacher. It teaches that not all value is visible. That what something looks like is only the beginning. That every object has layers, composition, context, consequence. It teaches you to stop assuming and start asking. To notice the difference between a flat base, 2, and a curved one. To understand why weight matters. To pay attention to things most people never see. That is the foundation of every great collector, not eyesight, but insight, and the lessons go even deeper. The 1982 cent teaches humility. Because no matter how much you study, how carefully you search, how many rolls you comb through, it may never reveal itself to you. You can spend years hunting, and come up empty. But you do it anyway. Because you're not just chasing a coin. You're chasing the experience, the moment when time collapses, and you connect with something forged in a different era. Something lost. Something rare. Something almost mythical. For some collectors, the journey started with inheritance. A parent's or grandparent's old coin box. A mysterious roll of pennies wrapped in paper so old it feels brittle. For others, it began with a story, an article shared online, a video passed between friends, a rumor whispered in a collector forum. But the result is the same: one small object awakens a much larger curiosity. Suddenly, you're not just interested in coins, you're learning about American history, about World War II, about the rise of inflation, about mint processes, about metal prices, about how decisions made in boardrooms in 1981 still echo in people's pockets today, and somewhere along the way, collecting becomes identity. You're not just a person with coins. You're a person who sees things differently. You carry a scale in your glove box. You know the difference between RD, RB, and BN. You can spot a reprocessed steel sent from across the room. You listen for the sound of metal on glass. You test, you catalog, you protect. Your friends may not get it. Your family might not understand. But you do. And so do the thousands of others quietly searching alongside you, all over the country, and all over the world. This is what most people don't see. They see the coin. The headline. The price tag. The hype. But they miss the discipline. The hours spent weighing, measuring, reading. The disappointments. The almosts. The false alarms. the ones that could have been. They miss the emotional peaks and valleys of a collector's life, the roller coaster of maybe, no, almost, not quite, and someday. But for those who stay with it, who lean into the process rather than the payout, something beautiful happens. You begin to see patterns. You begin to predict. You begin to feel connected, not just to coins, but to the invisible network of people who care about them. In this way, the 1982 cent is not a solitary object. It's a doorway. You start with one question, what's this coin worth, and you end up standing in a vast, echoing chamber filled with history, economics, metallurgy, culture, and memory. You begin to collect stories as much as coins. The one from the man who found a small date copper in an inherited coffee can. The woman who swore she saw the telltale curl in a Denver coin, only to realize her scale was off. The boy who brought a penny to show and tell and changed the course of his life. These aren't fables. They're fragments of a larger truth, that coins, like people, are more than what they seem, and in that truth lies something powerful. The realization that we can still touch the past. That even in a digital world, physical things matter. That even now, at a time when currency is disappearing into cards and apps, a single coin, mistruck, overlooked, underappreciated, can spark wonder. That's what makes the 1982 penny timeless. It doesn't just survive. It lives, and so, the hunt continues. Every day, someone new enters the search. A beginner. A dreamer. A skeptic turned believer. They read an article. They watch a video. They weigh a coin. And suddenly, the flame is lit again. Not because they expect to find one worth $76 million. But because something inside them whispers, what if? What if it's real? What if it's here? What if I'm the one? That hope, that small, glowing ember of possibility, is what keeps this story alive. That's why, 40 years later, people still care. That's why coins still matter. And that's why, long after the last penny is struck and the last paper roll is unwrapped, someone will still be asking the question, could this be the one? And maybe, just maybe, it is. Time passes. Coins change hands. Generations come and go. But the story of a coin like the 1982 small date copper cent doesn't fade. It grows stronger. With every year that ticks by, it becomes more elusive, more mythic, more layered in meaning. What started as a minting error has become something more, a kind of cultural echo. A whisper passed between collectors. A promise that not everything valuable has already been found, because the truth is, the real power of this coin isn't just in its metal, or even its rarity. It's in what it represents. It's in the idea that something so small, so overlooked, so easily lost, can still hold enormous worth. Not just in dollars. In history. In mystery. In potential. It reminds us that even in a world obsessed with speed and scale, the tiniest things can carry the biggest stories, and the story of the 1982 cent? It isn't just about copper and zinc. It's about change, literal and metaphorical. The U.S. Mint was responding to pressure. Inflation was squeezing budgets. Copper prices were rising. Something had to give. And in that transition, something slipped. A few copper blanks meant for the old world fell into the machinery of the new. A few coins carried the DNA of the past into a future that had no room for them. And now, they live between worlds. They're like fossils. Not extinct, but rare enough to make the heart race. To make collectors lean forward. To make researchers question what they thought they knew. And that feeling, that sharp breath of realization when you think you might be holding one, is what gives this coin its soul. For all our modern sophistication, for all the machines and diagnostics and certification slabs, coin collecting is still, at its core, an act of belief. You believe there's more to find. You believe that patterns hide stories. You believe that one more search, one more roll, one more late-night sorting session could change everything. And in this belief, the 1982 cent becomes a kind of lighthouse, pulling people toward it, illuminating the invisible, and the coin doesn't age. It doesn't rust. It doesn't rot. It simply waits. In jars, in drawers, in shoeboxes and tins, in bags of old coins buried in storage units. One coin among billions, marked only by the quiet difference of weight and design. And it waits for someone, maybe a child, maybe an elder, maybe someone who has never collected anything before, to look closely enough. To listen to their instincts. To trust the scale. To ask the right question. That's the beauty of it. You don't need wealth to find one. You don't need a museum or a microscope. You just need eyes, and time, and a little bit of wonder, and still, questions hang in the air like dust. How many were made? Could there be hundreds, and we just don't know it? Or were only a few ever struck? Did someone at the mint know? Was it an accident? A mix-up? A leftover batch? A technician distracted for a single minute? Or was it something more deliberate, a quiet rebellion against the coming zinc tide? We may never know. And maybe that's the point, because it's the not knowing that keeps the story alive. It's the gaps, the silence, that draws us in. The coin becomes a mystery we carry in our pockets. And the longer it evades complete explanation, the more powerful it becomes. There's a reason museums honor misprints and errors. There's a reason collectors pay millions for coins that technically failed at their job. It's because those mistakes reveal something human. They reveal that behind every machine is a person. That behind every process is chaos, barely contained. That even perfection has cracks, and in those cracks, something magic slips through. You can feel that magic in every dusty coin roll. In every coin toss that clinks against a glass jar. In the thrill of discovery when a weight shows 3.11 grams, and your heart skips a beat. In the soft relief and disappointment when it turns out to be a large date, not a small. And in the refusal to give up, even when logic says the odds are 1 in a billion. Because sometimes, even that one shows up, the 1982 cent reminds us that collecting is not just acquisition. It's connection. Connection to history. To craftsmanship. To chance. It brings us closer to the decisions and accidents that shaped currency, which in turn shaped commerce, which in turn shaped nations. It's a gateway not just into coins, but into time itself, and so we keep looking. Because maybe, just maybe, the next one will be found by someone who had no idea what they were holding. Maybe a child will dump out their piggy bank, and a parent will recognize the curl of the two, the weight just slightly heavier than it should be. Maybe a retired teacher will sort a box of old coins saved from years of classroom giveaways. Maybe a flea market vendor, paid in old change, will unknowingly pass history across a table. That's the thing about this story, it could belong to anyone. It's still writing itself. Every new discovery adds a chapter. Every false lead adds tension. Every role searched adds hope. And every person who enters the hunt becomes a character in this living, breathing saga. So what is the true value of the 1982 small date copper cent? Is it the dollar figure attached to it on auction sites, or is it something harder to measure, a story that pulls people together? A challenge that rewards patience. A moment frozen in metal that reminds us that even the most ordinary object, a penny, can become priceless, not because of what it buys, but because of what it means. This coin asks nothing of you but attention. It waits. Quietly. Somewhere out there, and maybe, someday soon, it will speak again. There's a moment, late at night, when the light from your desk lamp is the only glow in the room. The world is quiet. Everyone else is asleep. But you're still there, sitting with a scale, a magnifying glass, a roll of old pennies in hand. You're not thinking about millions of dollars. You're not chasing headlines. You're just listening. Listening to what every collector learns eventually, that silence and patience reveal the rarest truths. 1 coin at a time, you weigh. One by one, you look. And somewhere in that ritual, simple, repetitive, ancient in its own way, you realize this was never about the 1982 penny alone. It was about everything that surrounds it. About the systems we build, the errors we make, the history we leave behind in copper and zinc. The 1982 small date copper cent is just one artifact of a moment in time, but its story reveals something universal. That perfection is a myth. That value is layered. That smallness is often an illusion, because in that single penny lies industry, inflation, economics, policy, metallurgy, design, labor, inspection, storage, loss, rediscovery, obsession, authentication, and hope. What other object in your life does all of that at once? What other object, so easily thrown away, asks to be looked at again and again, more deeply each time? This coin is more than money. It's a symbol of the invisible weight of attention. The world doesn't stop for mistakes. But collectors do. And that's why they matter. And now, 40+ years later, this humble, copper disc continues to spark something few objects ever do: faith. Faith that not everything valuable has already been found. That even in an age of algorithms and AI and instant gratification, there is still room for slow discovery. For analog magic. For things that ask you to earn them. The 1982 small date copper cent isn't just a fluke. It's a mirror. It shows us what we miss when we move too fast. It's why collectors are different. They see beauty in wear. Precision in mistakes. Stories in scratches. They are archivists of the forgotten, protectors of the small. They understand something that the rest of the world is slowly forgetting, that everything fleeting leaves a trace. That even a penny has a legacy, and so, year after year, more people are drawn into the orbit of this coin. Some will find it. Most won't. But all of them will be changed. Because the hunt sharpens the eye. It builds knowledge. It deepens patience. It rewires how you move through the world. You begin noticing dates, fonts, weights, metals. You begin wondering where things come from, and what they're worth beyond the number on a receipt. And isn't that the whole point? To see more clearly. To understand more fully. To hold something in your hand and say, I know what this is. So maybe the value of the 1982 small date copper cent isn't just in its price tag, though that alone is astonishing. Maybe the real value is that it gave people a reason to stop. To learn. To care. It turned ordinary people into historians. It turned casual interest into lifelong passion. It made someone somewhere fall in love with collecting for the very first time, and that is worth more than any auction price, because when the lights go out, and the coins are boxed away, and the catalogs close, what remains isn't the metal. It's the meaning. The story. The way 1 cent taught thousands of people to look a little closer. That's the power of numismatics. That's the legacy of the 1982 penny, and somewhere out there, in a forgotten drawer or a dusty basement or a roll of coins no one's touched in years, one more piece of that legacy is still waiting. Not to be sold. Not to be bragged about. But to be understood, and when it is, when the next 1982 small date copper cent is found, it won't just be a discovery. It will be a reunion. A moment when past and present shake hands. A moment when time bends and whispers, you found me, and the world will feel just a little more magical again, because that's what great stories do, even the ones made of metal, even the ones worth just 1 cent.